Welcome to this video series. In this video series, we will be discussing about a Microsoft Agent Framework. Again, this is an open source framework from Microsoft. This is just not meant to build a chatbot, but you can also build a chatbot, decision-making workflows, autonomous workflows using this particular framework. Microsoft combined all of the existing product and services into this particular framework that includes AutoGen, Semantic Kernel, Azure Agent Service. So when you use the agent framework, essentially you will be using all of these three product and services together. Or you build using the agent framework that can be deployed in your local machine or in Azure. For instance, when you are building a workflow that can run in your local machine, when you create an agent that can be hosted in the Azure. So it does support both the environment. And this is completely supported by Microsoft. And I see that a lot of commits are happening in this particular framework in the recent past. So which means that when you using this particular library, or so if you come back, there is going to be a change. So there is no guarantee that this particular code will work forever. So you have to adapt the changes, right? When it comes to the installation, so it is a pretty simple installation. Basically, I'm just going to use Python, though it does support various other languages. I would prefer Python for this particular purpose. So you have to create a virtual environment and activate the environment and do the installation. So let me go to the Visual Studio Code here. So what are the libraries that I'm using? So if you see here, these are all the libraries that I'm using, right? I will work on this particular library, but there is no guarantee that it will work in the upcoming. So basically you have to make the code changes accordingly. We'll see how do we create the agent. First we will start with the in-memory agent. In-memory agent, in the sense the agent will be existing only in your machine. As soon as the execution is done, there is not going to be anything, right? Means everything will be cleaned up. So if you look at this, I'm loading the environment variable. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code and see. So if I go to the env file, so some of these information are needed. So the project endpoint, deployment name, open API endpoint, and the chart name, keys. So how do we get this information? First we will see how do we get the project endpoint. Again, navigate to the portal here. If you go to the Foundry and open up your project, this is where you will see the project endpoint. Just copy this information, and we need to have a model deployment name. Model deployment name, again, if you just go to the model, so this is what I have deployed. I have my deployment name, it's a GPT-4o mini, right? And the open API endpoint. So if you just click on that, if you click on this deployment name, hereby you will see the open API project name as well as its key. So copy all of this information, populate your env file. Now let's go to the documentation. So if you see here, I just import the class called Azure OpenAI Chat Client from this particular package. And I am using that particular class by passing all of this information, including the endpoint, deployment name, key, and the version information. Finally, I will make a call to the method called create agent by passing the instruction and name of the agent. Now we have the agent ready. We can just run the agent. So here I just go in a loop and get the input from the user and pass it to the agent. So if you see here, I just call it agent.run string by passing the input from the user. Now let's go to the Visual Studio Code and run it. Execute the code. Make sure you are using the easy login to log into your Azure subscription. I'm not going to do it. Let me skip that. So now let me go and clear this console and let me run the file here. So I'm just make a call to the first program here. So now it is going to create a in-memory agent. So if I just go to the portal again, if I just see here, there is not going to be any agent created because it is an inline in-memory agent. So now let me go and provide the user input here. So let me ask what return the response. So now the agent responded back. Now let me quit. So this is how we create a in-memory agent. So basically we will not create anything in the Azure, right? So this is all will get executed in your local machine. Now let's move forward. So in this case, instead of using the OpenAI agent, So if you see here, like we were using OpenAI chart client, right? So instead of that, I will be using Azure AI agent client, right? So what is the difference? So the difference is that again this is going to be a temporary agent, uh, but then like it will create a agent in the Azure, and then like as soon as the execution is done, that is going to get deleted. So everything will be seen. So if you see here this time around, instead of passing the API key, open API key, we are using the Azure CLI credentials, right? So there are quite a few type of credentials that is supported, but like for this particular video series, I will be using the CLI credentials. So now with that, again like I'm reading the project information, model deployment name from the env file, and the this agent client, if we just come over here, this is also part of the same library. So instead of importing the Azure OpenAI chat client, I just imported this particular client. This is again coming from Azure Identity library. So I will use that, and then like using which I will create a Azure Agent chart client by passing the credentials, and I call it as the same kind of a method, create agent. Name and instructions are provided. Everything else will be the same. We will be going in a loop and reading the information from the user, passing it to the agent, call the run stream method, and print the value. Now let me go and play the console again. Now let me go and call the function here. Now let me ask the same question here. Now this time around, it took a while. The reason is that if I just go back here, if you refresh it here, you will see the in-memory Azure agent got created, right? But the if I, okay, let me ask one more question here. What is the capital of India? This time around, the response is going to be quick, because like the very first time when you do it, it is going to create a agent and then like pass it to the agent, right? Now as we already have the agent, it will just reuse the agent, and the subsequent queries will be fast enough. Now let me go and quit. Now what will happen is that, as this is just a inlinement, if we just come over here and do a refresh, you will not see anything, because like as soon as the execution is done, that will get destroyed. Now again, like there is also going to be a one another type. Let me again clear the console. Now let me minimize this. So if you see here, this time around, instead of directly using the Azure AI chat client, I'm using chart agent, right? So there are three layers. First, you will have your model, and you will have your agent client. Then on top of that, you will have your chart agent, right? So the model, it's nothing but your LLM or OpenAI, right? OpenAI LLM, and on top of that, you will have your Azure agent client, and that will cover the state, thread, and all. And you will have your chart agent that will provide additional features like middleware, telemetry, all this information, right? So it's up to us. We can easily pass the middle layer here, right? So we don't need that. We can use with chart agent, we can directly use the LLM also, but in most of the cases, this is the flow, right? So now if you see here, I did not create the LLM one, but if you see closely here, I am passing the deployment name. Behind the scenes, it is just a model, right? So the agent client will use the model, and the chart agent will use the agent client, AI agent client. That's how it works. So now with that, let me go and run the program. If you see the program, it's as simple as that. So in the previous program, we just created an agent using this particular object, but then now, as we have this particular class, that will work as an agent for us. Now rest of the program will be seen. Now let me copy this. Now let me run this program. Let me ask the question here. So what is the LLM, and what is the capital of India, right? Let's maximize this. Now let it complete. Okay, now let me ask the next question. What is the capital of India? It just responded. Now let me ask you this question. So what was my first question, right? it is not going to respond back properly, because in the sense like by default you will not get all the features. You have to do the configuration, because like we are not using any thread here. So even if you use agent client with the Azure agent client, it is not going to respond back properly, right? Because there is a way to do that. Like you need to have a thread and all of those, that we will come back in a moment. Now let's talk about stream, non-stream. So in this case, like again, like I will use the same kind of a sample here. Azure agent client, I just created a client here. Okay, before I do that, let me exit from this particular program. So now in this particular program, I just created a Azure agent client. And if you see here, I just make a call to run method, right? So in the previous videos, we were using run stream. In this program, we are using run method. So now let's see like what is the difference here. So if I just come over here, run as a non-stream. If you closely notice, it will throw all the result at once. It is not going to stream. It will take a moment and it throw all the result. So that is the difference between run and run stream. Now let me clear this console again. Now let me go and run it as a stream here. Same program, except that I'm using a run stream method. Now let me go and run this particular program here. So now if you see clearly here, it is working as a stream, right? It's just not as a complete the execution and throw the output. No, it doesn't work that way. It's kind of a stream execution. Just created a temporary agent. Now we will see how do we permanently create the agent. So there are again two ways to create this agent. First, we can use the project client. I do not know how long this will support creating the agent, but like there is also going to be another way. I would assume that is going to be continued, rather like this particular method will get deprecated in the upcoming releases. So if you see here, we are importing a class called a project client from this particular package, and if I come down here, we are getting the default credentials. We are initiating this a project client by passing the project endpoint credentials. Now we have this project client. Now what we will do is that we will use the project client dot agents dot create agent, and we will create an agent. Now we have the agent. We will pass that agent to the chat agent. Again, you know the difference, right? We just created an agent. We will pass that particular agent to the chat agent to make use of the middleware, telemetry, all this support, right? Now rest of the program will be seen, but at the end we are also using the project client dot agents dot delete agent. Now let me clear this. Now let me go to Python 6. So now the agent gets created here. Now if I just go to the portal here, if I do a refresh, I will see that particular agent. Now what is the LLM? Again, the agent will get the input, and then like it is going to respond back to us. Now let me quit. So if I quit, so the way means like basically like the permanent agents should stay in the portal, but then like for a demo purposes, I don't want to keep any agents. So that's why like as soon as I am done, I'm requesting to delete the agent. But it's up to you, right? If you really wanted to keep this agent in the portal, you can keep it. Now let me go and clean this, and the agent get deleted. So there is a difference, right? The temporary agents will automatically get deleted, but the permanent agent, I'm asking the project client to delete that agent. And there is also another way to create the agent, and this time around I use the agents client, not the project client. This is a subset of the project client. At some point they will combine everything. They will keep only one class, but now we can either use the project client or agent client to create the agent. But the implementation, it is going to be the same. Get the default credentials, initialize the agents client by passing the project client and the credentials. Now create an agent here, pass that agent to the chart, or maybe we can also directly use it, right? So in this program we are not passing it to the chart agent, rather like it is directly being used. It's up to us, like we can create the agent and pass it to the chart agent if at all you wanted to have the additional features that includes the middleware, telemetry, all this information, right? But if you don't need all of this, you can very well just directly use the agent. That's what it's done in this particular program. Then we just pass the information to the agent. So if you see here in this particular program, we are using the thread, but then like I don't want to cover the thread. I will come back and discuss about the thread in a while, but let me go and run this program. Python 7, right? So okay, now again, like we are creating the agent here. Same question, what is LLM? So it is going to respond back. So now in between, now let me copy this agent ID here. Go to the next program. So in this program, I wanted to use the existing agent, right? In our previous, in this particular program, in the 7th program, we just created an agent. But in the 8th program, I don't want to create a new agent, or rather like I wanted to utilize the existing agent. So all you need is the agent ID, and the way you do it, it's pretty simple. So Azure AI agent client, pass the credentials, pass the project endpoint, also pass the agent ID. If you pass the agent ID and if it is exist, then it is not going to create a new agent, rather like it will use the existing agent. But if you still pass the agent ID which doesn't exist, then it is going to create a agent for you, call it as a unnamed agent or something like that. But in our case, like we just created an agent that is already exist. Now let me go and run the program here. So that is a 8th program, use the existing agent. Now if I just say what is LLM, so here it says that connecting to the agent, this particular agent connected successfully. If I go back to the portal, you will not see two different agents, rather like it is going to be the same agent. Now if I come back to this 7th program where I created the agent, if I quit, the agent will get deleted. Now if I go back to the 8th program and run it, it is going to fail. The reason is that if I just go to the portal again, there is not going to be any agent. I just deleted the agent. I wanted to delete the agent, I deleted the agent. It's up to us, right? Again, if I just come over here at the end of the program, I say like a clean up everything, right? So clean up the thread, clean up the agent. We will come back and discuss about thread, right? So but then like again I deleted the agent also. It's up to me, because this is a permanent agent, right? So now let me quit this program also. So now so far like what we have discussed is that how do we create a temporary agent, how do we create the permanent agent, and how do we use all of these agents, right? So in the videos we will continue to discuss the advanced concept. Thank you for this.